Hello there, it's Alana, lead faculty for Math 131, and I'm back to share even more of my calculator helps and instructions. All right, so now in this section, we are going to learn how to find a linear regression line with a calculator. And that's going to be a little bit involved. So the first thing we want to do is we want to enter the data table into L1 and L2, and we've already learned how to do that. That's why it says see previous instructions. But my data table for this particular data set is different. So let me pull up my calculator. Oh, and I'm going to make this smaller so that I can actually read the table at the same time. Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble. Okay, so stat, enter or edit. Now you can see I actually have an old data set in there. Well, I don't want that old data set. It's not the data set I want right now. So let me remind you, the way to get rid of old data is to go up, press clear, enter. That is the way. Up, and just moved to the left, kind of moved over to this other column. Clear, enter. Okay, now they're all cleared out. I'm going to start typing my new. Now remember, for this data set, and this is almost always the case, you have to pay attention to what your starter year is. So they say years since 1990, so our starting year is 1990. So this is actually 2. Right? And I'm going to tell you right now, this author, for very good reason, does that a lot. So watch out for that. Every single problem with years practically has a starter year somewhere. So look for it. All right, so we're going to enter our data. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Oopsie, I messed that one up. I could feel it when I typed it. All right, 20. 21. Now don't get yourself bogged. That's another thing to watch out for. A lot of times you'll get used to a pattern, but this is real data, and so you can sometimes get odd years or years that don't match the rest of the pattern. So watch out for that, because of course if you type anything wrong, then the whole thing falls apart. Hopefully I did all this right. I'm typing fast, but all right, so I've got my data in there, and again, I'm just typing numbers and pressing enter. I'm going to clear that because that's kind of the most boring thing in the world. All right, so now we are trying to find the linear regression line. Let me just remind you, and again, it doesn't say it here, but let me remind you. If I go to y equals, I still have my plot 1 on because I just did a recent scatter plot, but if I press graph, it's no good because my window's crappy, right? It doesn't suit what I'm trying to do. So if I hit zoom 9, there we go. Y equals, turn that on, make it dark. It already was. And then press zoom 9. I have a scattergram. So to match the scattergram that I have right here. Of course, the scattergram here is better because it was made with Excel, so it has a lot more options and other stuff like that. But nevertheless, I can still get a vague picture of what it looks like from my calculator. All right, now that was all kind of old stuff we've learned. We learned how to enter data with stat edit, and we've learned how to make graphs by going to y equals, turning them on, and then going to zoom 9. Boom, done. All right, so now how do we get this lovely regression equation? Well, the way we're going to do that is we're going to press stat again. Now edit is the editor, the kind of table-y looking thing, right, where you enter your data in. But over here on the right, there are these other options. And the way to move to them is to move to the right. So you press your right arrow and it moves you to the calculate menu. So this is the statistics calculation menu, and not to be confused with this calculate menu above your trace button. That's for graphing calculations. We'll deal with that in chapter 3 for the first time. But at this point, we're just trying to run calculations off of the data that we entered in the editor, see? So we want to do a calculation off of what we've put in the editor. Namely, we want to do the calculation that's number 4. So you can either move down to it with your down arrow to get to number 4, or you can just press 4. Either way. Now, I have the new operating system on here, and that is the way to go. It's free. You can download it from TI. You can get it from other people's calculators. It's awesome. If you don't have it, then you're going to have, it's going to say like lin reg, and that's going to be waiting for you, and you have to tell it like L1, comma L2, and then go from there. This menu system is fabulous. So it tells you your X list. It's saying X list is what? And you want to say, okay, my X list is L1. Now, it almost always is L1 and L2 sitting in there, so you can just kind of use your down arrow. If it didn't say L2, then you could press second 2 enter, and there it is, right? Let's say you want L3 just for the sake of it. You know, pretend when you went into stat edit, pretend you put your data in L1 and L3. You could do that, right? Nobody's stopping you. But then if you do that, then when you go to stat calc number 4, then you have to tell it L1 and L3 enter for your data, right? So I didn't use L3, I used L2. So most of the time, that's what it is. Standard load is L1, L2, typical. But if you ever want to change them, that's what those numbers are. L4, L5, L6 are above the 4, 5, and 6, and 1, 2, and 3 are above L1, L2, L3 are above 1 and 2 and 3. Now, frequency list is a more advanced topic. In our course, we always leave it blank. So just leave it blank. That's all you have to worry about for that. And then store equation. So never put anything in frequency list. Just ignore it. It's a statistics topic. And then store regression equation. Now, this is optional, but it's a really good option. It's a nice thing to do. So let me just show you how. Basically, it's saying I'm gonna run this regression equation. I'm gonna find this equation, y equals mx plus b. Do you want me to store it? And yeah, I want you to store it, because if you store it for me, then I can use the calculator to find more stuff, right? Storing the equation is not a bad idea. You don't have to do this, but it's a really nice plan. Now, the way to do it, it's a little bit complicated. It's under the variables button, VARS right there. So you click variables, and then you want to move to the right to y variables, because you're trying to tell it to store it. What it's going to come up with is y equals mx plus b. So you need a y variable. And again, we're always working with functions in algebra. This other stuff, that's calculus and pre-calc, so we're never dealing with those. So we're always going to pick number 1, which is function. And then you can pick any number in here you like, but quite frankly, most times we pick number 1 or number 2, right? So I'm going to pick number 1. So it's going to store that equation in y1 for me when I do it. Speaking of doing it, let me go down, and I'm going to move my cursor so that it's blinking on the word calculate, and then I press enter. And then it runs it. See, it's saying y equals ax plus b. There's your a, so that's your slope. There's your b, that's your y-intercept. Now, where did it store it? It doesn't look like it's stored. But if you go to y equals, there it is. See it? So if I use my right arrow, you can see it, but there's negative 21.5. Lots of decimal places, x plus 1082. See it? It stored it. And you might be thinking, well, okay, why is that a good thing? Well, let me press graph now. There's the line thrown in for good measure. And then wait for it, second table. If I go to the table, I can see all sorts of values, right? So I can start roaming around on what that model predicts for, you know, year 15 or year 22 or whatever. Right? So by storing it, I've helped myself. So it still does the scatter plot. That's the plot 1. So if you go up and turn plot 1 off, enter, then it won't do the scatter plot. It'll just do the line. Right? So if I go and press it on, enter, then I can see, beautiful. There's the scatter plot. There's the line. It's a thing of beauty, isn't it? All right, gorgeous. So now we have our lovely equations stored. So let me just do a quick recap. We went to stat, we go to calc, we pick number 4. L1 and L2 are pretty standard. If you ever want to change them, go ahead. That's above your 1 through 6 buttons. Always leave frequency list blank. If you want to store it, you have to tell it variables, y variables, number 1. I usually do number 1 for y1. Go down to calculate, press enter, and it runs it for you. Good? All right, let's see if there was anything else in there that we needed to cover. No, I think we're good. We've done all of it. All right, so I'll see you back here for Excel instructions on the same type of topics. See you then.